So Heather, why don't you introduce yourself, and I'm going to end this poll, and then we're going to get you the questions, and you can see what the audience is interested in knowing about from you. So.
Super. Thanks so much, Marty. Can you just raise your hand to make sure that you can hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. All right. All right. And I just launched my screen here to see if people can also see my slide deck.
Yep. And there's the poll results for you as well.
Okay. Lots of good questions. I really appreciate that. And actually, I come from a private equity background, so I've been fascinated listening to everybody today. And you know how there are different shades of finance. There's no way that we can all know it. So this is a really wonderful opportunity. I'm actually a co-founder of this business. I manage 3 closed-end funds in Central and Eastern Europe and the CIS, and kind of transformed myself. I never intended to spend my full time on Pharmajet, but I do. And I'm responsible for fundraising, good corporate governance, some of our business development, and looking after our shareholders. So I'm delighted to be able to tell you a little bit about our needle-free technology. So we're going to launch real fast, and then we'll come to the end. And certainly, if there's any key questions besides those that I think I can address regarding the poll, I'd be happy to do that. So Pharmajet is a needle-free focused immunization tool. It's a safe, fast, easy method of administration, kind of a simple push and click. Our devices are on the right-hand side. And the reason why we focus on vaccines is because sometimes we make them work better. Let's see, pages. There we go. So framing the vaccine market, it's prior to COVID, it was about a 2.5 billion annual immunization market. That's shot count, growing at 7% per year times the birth cohort of about 140 million children and the vaccines that they receive. By all measures, it's at least tripled. And I personally think that COVID is here to stay. I think it's going to be a little bit like your annual flu shot for a good number of years. But immunization generally is a standard of care, and we all now know that we share the disease burden, that it's global. And so a market growing in perpetuity with a number of diseases that have vaccine, lack of vaccine cures that are unmet. So well more than 100 novel developments prior to COVID, and now more than 140 of those underway. Needles are problems, and we have a needle-free solution that gets rid of those. Let me show you how it works, because that'll take away a few of the questions that you may have.
Pharmajet's an easy push and click needle-free injection. With global regulatory and clinical claims for IM, sub-Q, and ID delivery, we eliminate needle stick, trash, and reuse. In field and sophisticated care venues, patients greatly prefer the experience, and training takes 20 minutes.
Using a needle to administer vaccines in a busy pharmacy can be a challenge. I've been stuck by a needle, and not only does it hurt, but then there's the process of follow-up and having to get tested and worrying about any health concerns. I load the syringe, I tell the patient they're going to hear a little click, and then it's over.
Pharmajet's delivery can enhance the immune response several-fold. For the polio eradication initiative, intradermal delivery can cut the dose by 60% while producing a superior immune response. We've also engineered out the waste, capturing more doses per vial, creating a positive ROI for each injection. Global acceptance of Pharmajet's needle-free technology as a standard of care for the 3 billion annual immunization market is our mission. With 28 collaborations across more than 40 injectables, we are looking for partners to help us make that a reality.
So that was then, and this is now. We're a good long ways ahead of when that video was made. And as you can see, I have longer hair now. But anyway, going back to our technology, everything that I tell you in this deck, with the exception of our financial forecasts, is a fact. It's been proven several times over. So our technology is 89 to 99% preferred, depends on what you're injecting because some things sting. An easy push and click, anyone can do it in frankly any environment. It's 2 to 3 times faster than needles. And we see an observed additional amount of participation. So for herd immunity, that's a big deal. People are afraid of needles, and typically it's a good 10% will never take a needle injection, and 25% of adults and 66%. In terms of savings, we also plow back a positive ROI for every single injection. Needle cannulas have waste, they overfill the vials, we capture that overfill, and typically about 2 out of 10 dose vial, we'll get 12 doses. And then we clean up sharps. We don't have any sharps disposal costs. We have global acceptance across a variety of venues. We have a number of partners. They are not all on this list. But rule of thumb, more than 60 collaborations globally with large pharma, small pharma, academic, well-endowed institutions and NGOs. More than 60 clinical studies completed, including claims for us, more than 70 underway, and we have 136 distinct novel platforms, vaccines, infectious disease, cancer, autoimmune, being developed with Pharmajet's products. We have a lot of regulatory, in fact, registered in more than 42 countries with 50 more underway. Our device is a general clearance class 2 medical device. And then we also have some clinical claims. Lots of firsts and onlys. And based on our intramuscular, subcutaneous, and intradermal clearances, we are the only commercial state needle-free technology globally that is appropriate for vaccine delivery. And the reason is that vaccines are either intramuscular or intradermal, and the other technologies in the marketplace are subcutaneous clearances only. We have a layer cake of protection. So we have a number of patents, 47 of them issued. Not only are they on specific features, but also our system working together. We have a number of trade secrets. To do what we do, that fast fluid injection is very difficult to do, but we make it look elegant. And then in terms of regulatory, not only would somebody have to repeat what we've done, but they would probably violate our IP in the process. So we estimate that we're 5 to 8 years ahead of anybody who wants to try. Essentially, we compete with needles. Let's move a little bit into kind of immunology. We discovered along the way that you can move from the muscle to the skin. And because the skin has antigen cells that are always eliciting immune responses, you can, rule of thumb, show that 80% less vaccine is the same in immune response. And in fact, we enjoy global clinical claims of 60% being superior in immune response, so 60% less. And needle injections into the skin are really hard and painful. And ours is a push and click, delivered in less than 1/10 of a second, faster than the nervous system can register a response. We also have a number of studies, and these are good examples of either full dose being non-inferior to needles. So for things like influenza, measles, mumps, rubella, there's 32 vaccine preventable diseases. But we've also been able to prove that fractional dose, intradermal delivery, again, about 80% less, is the same in immune response. And 1/3 of all vaccine preventable diseases would have needle data or our needle-free data demonstrating that. An HPV vaccine on the bottom left there, we've proven that twice, including with Merck as one of our partners in the most recent study. And we're pursuing that further this coming year with NIH and the country of Indonesia. And again, on polio, we're part of the Global Polio Eradication Initiative. Not only is 80% less the same, but actually 60% less is superior. This is an example of a nucleic acid vaccine. It's just simply visually easy for people to see. We have a number of different studies, and not all vaccines are the same, but we see a consistent, faster, longer, stronger immune response. That's why we've continued to focus on vaccines. We wouldn't see that if it were simple drug delivery. So the green line is Pharmajet. The bar of protective immunity is that 100% level. The needle group is in the blue lines. After the first injection, Pharmajet is boosted above that protective immunity level. The needles don't get there. After the second injection, we're again boosted. Pharmajet surpasses the protective immunity level. Needles don't get there. And then you have challenge to prove that the patient's been protected. We see this again, particularly in DNA and messenger RNA, which are now household names thanks to groups like Pfizer and Moderna. In terms of our business pillars, we're focused on really large channels with really large partners. So on the left-hand side for our intradermal platform, we've worked with the Center for Disease Control, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, WHO, over a number of years, and the studies and the claims are theirs. So we've proven that 60% less injected intradermally is superior in immune response. The world is moving from the oral drops, which have a live virus, to the injectable inactivated vaccine, which is at least 20 times more expensive. Gavi, which sits right next to the WHO and pays for immunization programs in 73 countries, has agreed to fully subsidize our product for any country that wants it. It will be another decade or two before polio is actually eradicated. On the far right side, the federal market activity. Until COVID surprised us, we were working with the US government on a 50 to 60 million stockpile for Pharmajet. In fact, we collaborate with 8 government agencies. And since that time, we now have 18 collaboration partners in COVID, spanning 10 countries, one of which has just entered phase 3 in India, which I'll tell you about. We also have a contract with the US government to develop variable dose device platforms, which allow us to move into drug delivery more specifically. We may not make those drugs work better. Again, that's why we focus on vaccines today. But what it means is we become more interesting as a building block for a third party to own us. And then in the middle there, prior to COVID, we had about 100 vaccine programs moving forward. Many of them are in DNA and messenger RNA, but that's infectious disease, oncology, et cetera, et cetera. And as those things come to market, we become part of their program, which at commercial stage would probably be a franchise of no less than 10 years. Let's talk about polio for a minute. And again, these are all facts. 60% less is superior. We get 20% more out of the vials. It's 2 to 3 times faster. It's 99% preferred. And we have 50% less weight and waste. So using Nigeria as an example, where each child would need to have 2 polio injections with the inactivated vaccine, we could create 12 million in annual savings for them. They're one of the larger countries. We're dealing with at least 14 countries right now that constitute 14 times our existing capacity in our syringes alone. One country order right now that is pending for Uganda, the injector requests exceed our current capacity by 2.5-fold right now. So more money, more time, more capacity, and you guys get the idea. That's why I'm actually presenting Pharmajet today. In terms of COVID, these are kind of bookends. On the left side, you'll see an example of the vaccine bookend, and on the right side, it's actually a biopolymer antibody predictive test. Among our 18 collaborations, these are the 2 that are furthest along. The partner on the left, which I can't disclose, but you guys could figure out, is in India. They have an estimated initial need of 100 to 200 million Pharmajet needle-free shots. Rule of thumb there would be about a $25 million expenditure to scale that up for them, in addition to what we already have underway. On the antibody side, injecting intradermally, the antibody predictive test would essentially light up if you develop antibodies. It should be a long-term predictive test, and the first use would be the military, and then thereafter, people on the front lines and also around the world in other countries. This is a generic example of our portfolio of novel developments. But what's important that you understand is that as these progress into the phase 1, 2, 3 clinical stage, in many cases, if not most cases, the developers drop the needle-based delivery altogether because Pharmajet helps increase the immune response. As they come to market at commercial stage, we would enjoy royalties from the sale of that vaccine or therapeutic. We would also enjoy transfer prices of our product, and we have no distribution or marketing costs, and we become a named method of administration on the label, if not the only method of administration on the label. And we estimate this franchise for Pharmajet today, even if just a handful of things make it to market, non-COVID related, would be worth at least $150 million to Pharmajet. Many of the partners also choose to use both of our devices as they proceed forward. In terms of the—
Heather, we've got about 5 minutes left.
You bet. In terms of—
There is a question about how much capital have you raised? Do you have an open round now? And maybe you don't have to say what the terms are.
Yep. So I raised $66 million from high net worth and family office investors to date. We have an SPA approved, which is based on a pre-money valuation of $120 million. We have one large investor who signed that SPA for a $10 million commitment. So we would be searching for up to an additional 10 million, although we've run preemptive rights and we have some takers as well as other small investors. To give you an idea, some investors could be $50,000 investors, or it could be $1 million investor. My largest investor to date is $10 million.
And I hate to get ahead of your presentation. What's the, oh, here you go, use of funds. Oh my God, we're right here.
We're right here, yeah. Capacity increases our primary motivation. And again, this is not for COVID. This would increase our capacity to another 45 million syringe throughput. It reduces our cost of goods sold by 50%. And then because we're not yet profitable, we need some working capital and overhead coverage. Although we hit that profitability level at the end of this coming year, or sorry, this existing year. And on a run rate basis, we would be somewhere $10 to $20 million in revenue if everything goes well with timing this year. And sometimes logistics are hard. We don't recognize until we ship. If you look at this hockey stick, we would essentially at least double this or perhaps even triple it with our COVID collaboration going all the way. So I'm going to actually ask you to ask any more questions because I certainly have more slides, but I'd be delighted to address questions or pass along my contact details for anyone.
I think we've got a couple of minutes if you want to, dive a little bit deeper into, where you see this market, where you see your strategy going, and also like what's your perspective towards an exit, and where that, how will that exit occur and what's the timing for that?
Okay. So 2 fast slides, just to give you guys an idea. We compete very effectively against 5-cent needles all the way up to $1.50. We price competitively with needles, and typically at a premium, we still save at least 30 to 50%. Our injectors have been built to be used over a useful life of 30,000 injections. So it's kind of razor blade. And we price with gross margins depending upon volumes that range from 35 to 85% today. In terms of why Pharmajet's valuable and where we're headed, I think we're just a building block for third parties, frankly. We never designed this to be owned forever, but we have most certainly device interests like the Becton Dickinsons of the world. We're always on their radar screen. Potentially some large pharma, they might be very well interested in our novel program, but we have a lot of firsts and onlys. And so our franchise would be very hard for somebody to repeat. And especially BD always gives us a hard time about how important it is, the stickiness with those customers as the novel developments come forward. And in terms of benchmarks, we typically would see a 7 to 20 times revenue multiple. The higher end includes pre-filled or license arrangements with vaccine partners or stockpiling. And for people in this round, it would typically be kind of a 5 to 7x on the low side, maybe as much as 14x, particularly if we have a COVID collaboration that goes all the way for a return on investment. Anything else, Marty, or am I out of time?
Heather, I think this looks really good. I'm super impressed by how much intellectual property you guys have established, how this is a real company and how the opportunity is. And it seems like you need some bridge capital really for fulfillment purposes. Did you want to just go through real quickly the senior management slide?
Sure. Just to give you an idea, it's not all about me. My job is to make sure that we've got great people in their seats. My executive chairman helped orchestrate the Thermo Fisher Bioscience merger. He's been in healthcare and private equity for a good number of years. His name is Ron Lowy. He's worked together in 3 other companies with my CFO, Jeff Jordan, who also ran one of the divisions at Thermo Fisher. Chris Capello, who is now our CEO, is homegrown. He started with us about a decade ago and helped develop our devices, our primetime devices. So we have a number of qualified regulatory clinical specialists, lots of people with lots of degrees. And again, happy to provide more information to anybody who would like to know more.
Perfect, Heather, and we'll distribute your information to the audience members as well. So again, Heather Potters, Pharmajet, and thank you so much for your presentation. It's great.